I call Scott Simpson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As Chairman of the Local Government Environment Select Committee, it's always a pleasure to take a call on a first reading for a bill that is going to be directed to the committee. And this Canterbury Property Boundaries and Related Matters Bill is, as the Minister indicated in his opening speech, part of a suite of Canterbury Christchurch legislation that goes towards the regeneration of Christchurch as we enter into that regeneration phase. And I'm looking forward to guiding the Select Committee through this bill, through our scrutiny of it, and looking forward to hearing submissions from people from Christchurch and the Canterbury region. So the Canterbury earthquakes of 2010 and 2011 had an absolutely, of course, devastating impact, not only in a physical sense but also in an emotional sense, upon the lives of all Cantabrians. And initially the responses, of course, were in the first hours and days to secure human life and maintain and protect human life. And then we moved into, in the days and weeks that followed, a period of time to clean up, to tidy up, and to try and gain some equilibrium again for those people who were so affected. And then, of course, we entered in the months that followed and the years that have followed, the 5 years that have followed since, a period of recovery. And we now come to this stage of the next phase, which is the regeneration stage. And this bill is designed to assist in that process. One of the very obvious features of an earthquake, sir, and a significant earthquake of the sort that struck Canterbury, was that the land literally moves. And in some places the land has moved very considerably and very dramatically. In some places less so, but still importantly in terms of the legal approach to how we as a nation define land tenure and the ownership of land. And it's the very basis of our land, our property owning democracy, that land is defined in a way that is measurable, that does have boundaries, and that so ownership can be well defined. And what has occurred in Christchurch, sir, is that there has been a situation that has arisen that makes literally a legal fiction of some of the basic premises of our land tenure system. Landowners haven't had the much needed security and certainty that they need in order to progress their way through this regeneration phase. They haven't had the ability to rely accurately upon surveyed lines and boundaries in terms of wanting to re-landscape property, to rebuild dwellings and buildings, and to make sure that they could do so with certainty and a robust nature. The changes that the earthquake strew upon the land literally made a lie of some of the boundaries. Surveyors, for instance, sir, haven't been able to rely accurately on the historic lines, and they haven't been able to exactly determine where new boundary lines should be. There's been an area of dispute, an area of concern, and an area of uncertainty that must have been professionally very challenging for those surveyors and people involved. So it's been a very long time since I studied land law at Auckland University, but one of the things that I do remember as a basic principle of our land law was that the general rule is that boundaries do not move with the land. So in most cases, sir, for instance, where there might be a slip or something of that nature, then the boundary line stays exactly where it is, and the land falls where the land falls, but the boundary line remains the same. That, of course, has not been able to be the case in Christchurch. And so this bill, as I read it, and I'll look forward to getting into the nitty-gritty of it as it goes through Select Committee, but as I read it and understand it, this is a bill that would turn that principle on its head, so that it would be a common sense recognition that in the case of Canterbury and in Christchurch, the boundaries did move with the land. And so that's a significant change to the basic principle of our land law, and that's why this piece of legislation, which is well defined in terms of its geographic application, is needed to ensure certainty and structure can go on, and so that the people of Canterbury can continue with the rebuild in a way that gives them the knowledge and certainty that they need in order to do so. So this bill will bring, I think, some much needed clarity to people who have not had that clarity until now. The bill will ensure that the boundaries reflect the actual land changes and the real land changes, and that the bill will, sir, reflect a situation where the boundaries will be as landowners generally expect the boundaries to be, and I think that's a very good thing. Surveyors will be able to apply the new boundaries move principle with certainty, and they'll be able to get on and do their job. And there's no doubt in my mind, sir, that this bill will speed up the regeneration and the rebuild of Christchurch. I want to assure the Labor member that has just resumed her seat that the committee under my chairmanship, I can assure her, will give this bill every thorough scrutiny. There will be plenty of time for submitters to make submissions, and we will be able to, I'm sure, accommodate this bill, small though it is, important though it is, within the wider range of the suite of legislation currently before the committee. I commend the bill to the House.